I will destroy your career. That's what the Harrington family promised me, a 7th grade English teacher. They almost succeeded too, until I revealed every email, grade record, and witness statement at the school board meeting. The look on their faces when they realized I'd documented everything, worth every sleepless night. It was an ordinary Tuesday in October when I first noticed something was off. The classroom was filled with the usual morning chaos, backpacks being unzipped, chairs scraping against linoleum, the smell of pencil shavings and hand sanitizer mixing in the air. I was passing back graded essays when I saw Tyler Harrington's face fall as he looked at his seal. Not surprising. He'd barely met the basic requirements and had clearly written it the night before. "Ms. Bennett, can I talk to you after class?" he asked, his voice carrying a note of panic I hadn't heard before. "Of course, Tyler," I replied, continuing to hand back papers. After the bell rang and the other students filed out, Tyler approached my desk with unusual hesitation. He was normally confident to the point of cockiness, the kind of 13-year-old who believed his family's status in our small town exempted him from actual effort. "My parents are going to kill me," he said, staring at the floor. "They said if I get another bad grade, they'll take away my gaming setup." I pulled out my gradebook. "Tyler, this isn't just one bad grade. You've been turning in subpar work all semester. Your last 3 assignments were incomplete, and you failed the midterm. Can't you just change it? Please?" His eyes darted up to meet mine. "My dad knows the superintendent." I felt a familiar weight settle in my stomach. In my 6 years of teaching, I'd encountered this type of situation before. Students from privileged families expecting special treatment. But the Harringtons were different. Richard Harrington was the CEO of the largest employer in our county and sat on several influential boards. His wife, Vanessa, chaired the PTA and the town's cultural foundation. "I'm sorry, Tyler, but that's not how this works. I'd be happy to discuss ways you can improve your grade, extra credit, rewriting the essay," I offered. "Whatever," he muttered, grabbing his backpack and stomping out. I should have known then that this wouldn't be the end of it. But I didn't expect the email that arrived in my inbox that evening as I sat at my kitchen table, grading papers with a cup of tea growing cold beside me. From vharrington@gmail.com. Subject: Concerning Tyler's English grade. "Ms. Bennett, we need to discuss Tyler's recent performance in your class. Please call us this evening. Vanessa Harrington." The brevity was concerning. I'd had enough parent interactions to recognize the thinly veiled anger. Still, I believed in open communication. I dialed the number listed in the school directory. Vanessa answered on the second ring. "Ms. Bennett, thank you for calling." Her voice was honey-sweet, but there was a brittleness underneath. "Of course. I understand you wanted to discuss Tyler's grade?" "Yes. Richard and I are quite concerned. Tyler has never struggled academically before." I reached for my gradebook. "Actually, Mrs. Harrington, Tyler has been struggling all semester. His homework completion rate is below 60%, and the quality of his work shows minimal effort." "That's not possible," she said, the sweetness evaporating. "Tyler has always been an excellent student. Perhaps your teaching methods aren't engaging him properly." I took a deep breath. "I understand your concern, but I've documented all of Tyler's missing assignments. I'd be happy to meet with you and Tyler to create an improvement plan." "That won't be necessary," she said coldly. "Richard and I will be speaking with Principal Davis about this. Good evening." The line went dead. I stared at my phone for a long moment, then made a decision that would ultimately save my career. I opened my laptop and wrote a detailed email to Principal Davis, documenting the conversation and attaching Tyler's grade records. Then I forwarded copies of all of Tyler's assignments and my grading rubrics to my personal email, just in case. The next morning, Principal Davis called me into her office before her first period. She looked uncomfortable, fidgeting with a pen on her desk. "Catherine, I received a concerning call from the Harringtons last night," she began. "I assumed you might," I replied. "That's why I sent you that email." She nodded. "Yes, I appreciated that. But the situation is complicated. The Harringtons are claiming you've singled Tyler out unfairly. They said you've been harder on him than other students." I felt my face flush. "That's absolutely untrue. I use the same rubric for every student." "I believe you," she said quickly. "But the Harringtons are influential. Richard mentioned the new library funding coming up for vote next month. The district can't afford to lose that." The implication was clear. The Harringtons were leveraging their donations to the school to pressure her. "So, what are you suggesting?" I asked, my voice steady despite the anger building inside me. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Maybe there's a way to work with Tyler? Give him some extra credit opportunities? Something to bring his grade up to at least a B?" I stood up. "With all due respect, that would be unfair to every other student who earns their grades honestly. I'm happy to offer Tyler the same opportunities for improvement that I offer everyone else." Principal Davis sighed. "Just think about it, Catherine. Please." I walked out of her office with my head high, but my stomach in knots. In the hallway, I passed Vanessa Harrington herself, dressed impeccably in a designer suit, her blonde hair perfectly styled. She gave me a cold smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Miss Bennett," she said with artificial warmth. "So nice to see you. I trust you'll be reconsidering Tyler's grade?" "Mrs. Harrington, I'm happy to discuss ways Tyler can improve his performance going forward," I replied evenly. Her smile hardened. "I don't think you understand. This grade is unacceptable. Richard and I have contributed significantly to this school's success. We expect certain considerations in return." I maintained eye contact. "I treat all my students equally, Mrs. Harrington. Tyler is welcome to revise his essay or complete extra credit, just like any other student." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Do you know who we are in this community? Richard is personal friends with Superintendent Wilson. One word from us, and your teaching career in this district would be over." My heart raced, but I kept my expression neutral. "Is that a threat, Mrs. Harrington?" "It's a reality check," she replied, then turned on her heel and walked away. I stood frozen in the hallway, students streaming past me to their classes. The bell rang, jolting me back to the present. I had a class to teach. I couldn't let this shake me. Not visibly, at least. But something had changed. The Harringtons had made it clear. This wasn't just about a grade anymore. This was about power. That afternoon, I received an email from Principal Davis informing me that I was required to attend a parent-teacher conference with the Harringtons the following day. I spent that evening gathering evidence. Tyler's assignments, my grading rubrics, the class syllabus, email exchanges with Tyler about missing work. I made copies of everything. The conference was set for 4:30 p.m. in the conference room, adjacent to Principal Davis's office. I arrived early, arranging my documentation neatly in front of me. Principal Davis arrived next, looking stressed. "Catherine, I hope we can resolve this amicably," she said quietly. "That's my hope as well," I replied. The Harringtons swept in exactly on time. Richard Harrington was tall and imposing in an expensive suit, his silver hair perfectly coiffed. Vanessa matched his polished appearance. Tyler slouched in behind them, looking at the floor. "Let's get straight to the point," Richard began without preamble. "My son has maintained an A average throughout his academic career. Suddenly in your class, he's failing. That suggests the problem isn't with Tyler." I opened my folder. "Mr. Harrington, I understand your concern. However, Tyler's current grade reflects his actual performance." I slid a spreadsheet across the table. "This shows all assignments, their due dates, and Tyler's scores. As you can see, he's missing several key assignments and performed poorly on others." Vanessa barely glanced at the paper. "What matters is that Tyler feels targeted in your classroom. He says you embarrass him in front of other students." Tyler shifted uncomfortably, but remained silent. "I never single out students for criticism," I said firmly. "I'd be interested to hear specific examples of when Tyler felt embarrassed." "This isn't about specific examples," Richard cut in. "It's about the overall hostile environment you've created." Principal Davis interjected. "Perhaps we could discuss ways to help Tyler succeed going forward?" I nodded. "I've prepared an improvement plan. Tyler can revise his essay, complete the missing assignments for partial credit, and—" "That's not acceptable," Richard interrupted. "The damage is already done. Tyler's GPA will be affected. His permanent record—" "It's 7th grade, Mr. Harrington," I said gently. "Colleges won't be looking at these grades." "That's not the point," Vanessa snapped. "The point is that you've unfairly assessed our son, and we won't stand for it." Richard leaned forward. "Let me be perfectly clear, Ms. Bennett. We donate substantially to this school. The new science wing has our name on it. We expect certain considerations in return." "Are you suggesting I should change Tyler's grade because of your donations?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "I'm suggesting you recognize the reality of your situation," he replied coldly. People in this town listen to us. Your reputation as a teacher depends on parent satisfaction. Principal Davis looked increasingly uncomfortable. Mr. Harrington, while we greatly appreciate your family's contributions, our grading policies— Save it, Linda, he interrupted. We all know how this works. Ms. Bennett is being unnecessarily rigid. If she values her position here, she'll reconsider. I closed my folder slowly. Are you threatening my job, Mr. Harrington? He smiled, a cold, confident smile. I'm simply stating facts. The Harrington name carries weight in this district. We can make or break careers with a single conversation. There it was, the arrogance I needed on record. I see, I said calmly. In that case, I think we should continue this discussion with Superintendent Wilson and the school board present. An excellent idea, Vanessa agreed, misunderstanding my intention. I'll have my assistant set it up. As the meeting concluded, I noticed Tyler hadn't spoken a single word. When his parents turned to leave, our eyes met briefly. In that moment, I saw something unexpected. Shame. The next day, the rumors began. It started with whispers in the faculty lounge. A colleague avoided my eyes in the copy room. Another changed direction when she saw me in the hallway. By lunchtime, Principal Davis called me into her office again. Catherine, I've received some concerning reports, she began hesitantly. What kind of reports? I asked, though I had a sinking feeling I already knew. There are rumors that you've been unfair to multiple students, not just Tyler. That you play favorites. That you've made inappropriate comments. I stared at her in disbelief. None of that is true. Who's making these claims? Several parents have called with concerns, she said vaguely. And the Harringtons have apparently spoken with other families. Of course they had. Character assassination was their strategy. This is a coordinated attack on my professional reputation, I said firmly, because I refused to give special treatment to a student who didn't earn it. Principal Davis looked pained. Catherine, I believe you. But the situation is escalating. The Harringtons are demanding you be placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. On what grounds? They're claiming a pattern of discriminatory grading practices and unprofessional conduct. I took a deep breath. And what do you plan to do? She couldn't meet my eyes. The superintendent is involved now. There will be a special school board meeting next week to address the allegations. Until then, I'm sorry, but they're asking you to work from home. It felt like being punched in the stomach. You're suspending me based on unfounded accusations? It's paid leave, she said quickly. Just until the board meeting. It's standard procedure for this type of situation. Except there was nothing standard about this situation. This was the Harringtons flexing their influence, showing me exactly what they meant about making or breaking careers. I walked out of the school that afternoon feeling numb. Students watched curiously as I carried a box of personal items to my car. News travels fast in a middle school. By the time I reached home, my phone was buzzing with texts from concerned colleagues. I spent the next 5 days methodically building my case. I reached out to parents of other students in Tyler's class, explaining the situation and asking if they'd be willing to share their experiences with my teaching. To my surprise and relief, many responded with outrage at the Harringtons' tactics. Several offered to speak at the board meeting. I compiled every email exchange with Tyler and his parents. I gathered exemplary work from other students who had received similar grades to Tyler's for similar quality work, removing names for privacy. I printed screenshots of my grading software showing the consistent application of rubrics across all students. Then I discovered something unexpected. While reviewing my records, I noticed a pattern with Tyler's previous grades. His report cards showed straight A's, but the few graded assignments I'd seen from other classes didn't match that level of achievement. On a hunch, I reached out to a trusted colleague who taught Tyler math. Can I ask you something confidentially? I said when she called me back. What kind of student is Tyler Harrington in your class? There was a long pause. Officially, he's an A student, she said carefully. And unofficially? Another pause. Catherine, you didn't hear this from me, but Tyler should be getting C's at best. His work is mediocre and he skips assignments regularly. Then why does he have an A? She laughed bitterly. The same reason I drive a 10-year-old car and can barely make my mortgage payments. I can't afford to lose my job. The Harringtons made it clear what they expect. How many teachers have they intimidated? I asked. Most of us, she admitted. That's not something we're proud of. But they've gotten teachers transferred, denied tenure. One was even fired after Richard Harrington claimed she was emotionally unstable. I thanked her and hung up, a new understanding dawning. This wasn't just about Tyler's English grade. This was about a wealthy family who had been bullying the entire school system for years. The day of the school board meeting arrived. It was scheduled for 7 p.m. in the high school auditorium to accommodate what was expected to be a large crowd. The Harringtons had evidently been working the phones because the room was packed when I arrived. I recognized many parents, teachers, and even students, including several from my classes. I took a seat in the front row, my documentation organized in a professional portfolio. The Harringtons entered shortly after, moving through the crowd like royalty, shaking hands and accepting supportive pats on the back. They sat across the aisle from me without acknowledgement. Superintendent Wilson called the meeting to order. He was a tall, thin man who had always struck me as more politician than educator. We're here tonight to address concerns raised about the professional conduct of Ms. Catherine Bennett, 7th grade English teacher at Lakeside Middle School, he began. The Harrington family has brought serious allegations that warrant our attention. Richard Harrington spoke first, his deep voice projecting effortlessly through the auditorium. My wife and I have always supported this school district, both financially and as involved parents. We believe in public education and its power to shape young minds. That's why we were deeply disturbed by our son's experience in Ms. Bennett's classroom. He painted a picture of a vindictive teacher who targeted his son, embarrassed him in front of peers, and graded unfairly. He claimed other parents had similar experiences but were afraid to come forward. This isn't just about one grade or one assignment, he concluded. It's about a pattern of unprofessional behavior that has no place in our schools. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for fair treatment for all students. Vanessa spoke next, her voice trembling with what I recognized as practiced emotion. As a mother, there's nothing more painful than watching your child lose confidence because of an adult who should be nurturing their potential. Tyler used to love reading. Now he dreads English class. Is that the educational environment we want for our children? Several board members nodded sympathetically. I maintained a neutral expression, waiting my turn. Superintendent Wilson turned to me. Ms. Bennett, would you like to respond to these allegations? I stood and approached the podium, carrying my portfolio. I could feel the weight of every gaze in the room. Thank you for the opportunity to address the board, I began calmly. I've been a teacher in this district for 6 years, and my record speaks for itself. I've never received a negative evaluation, and my students consistently show strong growth in reading and writing skills. I opened my portfolio. The allegations made by the Harrington family are not only false, but part of a pattern of intimidation that has affected multiple teachers in this district. I heard murmurs ripple through the crowd. I'd like to present evidence that demonstrates 3 things. First, that Tyler Harrington's grade in my class accurately reflects his work. Second, that my grading practices are consistent across all students. And third, that the Harringtons have attempted to leverage their financial influence to pressure me into changing their son's grade. I distributed copies of my documentation to the board members, then displayed key documents on the overhead projector. As you can see, Tyler has missed 8 assignments this semester. Of the assignments he did complete, many were below standard, as demonstrated by these examples compared with the rubric. I showed side-by-side comparisons of Tyler's work with anonymous samples from other students who received similar grades. I apply the same standards to every student, regardless of their family name or background. I then moved to the emails and meeting notes, highlighting the Harringtons' increasingly threatening language. Mr. Harrington stated, and I quote, "The Harrington name carries weight in this district. We can make or break careers with a single conversation." This was said in the presence of Principal Davis, who can verify my account. Principal Davis, sitting with the board members, gave a small, reluctant nod. But perhaps most concerning is what I discovered while preparing for this meeting. I pulled out a new set of documents. I have statements from 7 teachers at Lakeside who report similar pressure from the Harrington family to inflate Tyler's grades over the past 3 years. The room erupted in whispers. Richard Harrington's face flushed deep red. These teachers have requested anonymity for fear of retaliation, but they've signed sworn statements that I provided to the board. Additionally, I have statements from parents of 15 other students in my class who attest to my fair grading practices and professional conduct. I gestured to the audience, where several parents stood up to identify themselves. Finally, I'd like to address the real issue at hand. This isn't about my teaching. It's about a family using their wealth and influence to manipulate our educational system. It's about a student who has been taught that rules don't apply to him because his parents can bully teachers into submission. I turned to face the Harringtons directly. I became a teacher because I believe every student deserves an education that prepares them for the real world. In the real world, success comes from hard work and integrity, not intimidation and privilege. I returned to my seat as the room buzzed with conversation. Richard Harrington immediately demanded to speak again, striding to the podium with barely controlled fury. "This is outrageous," he thundered. "Ms. Bennett is attempting to deflect from her own failings by attacking my family's character. These so-called statements are hearsay at best, fabrications at worst." But his usual commanding presence was faltering. Board members were flipping through my documentation with concerned expressions. "Furthermore," he continued, "our contributions to this district have always been made out of generosity, not expectation of special treatment. To suggest otherwise is slanderous." That's when Sarah Miller, another parent, stood up from the audience. "May I speak?" The board chair nodded, and Sarah approached the podium. She was a quiet, unassuming woman whose daughter was in my class. "I wasn't planning to talk tonight, but I can't stay silent. My daughter Emily is in Ms. Bennett's class. She works incredibly hard and earns her A's. Last year, in 6th grade, Emily was devastated when Tyler Harrington received the English Achievement Award despite rarely turning in assignments. The teacher later told me privately that she was pressured to give him the award because of his family's donations to the school. Others began to stand. A math teacher, a parent of a student who'd been in Tyler's class for years, a former school board member. One by one, they shared similar stories of the Harringtons using their influence to manipulate grades, awards, and special treatment. Vanessa Harrington's perfectly composed facade began to crack. She whispered urgently to her husband, who shook his head sharply. Superintendent Wilson, looking increasingly uncomfortable, attempted to regain control of the meeting. "While these testimonials are concerning, we should return to the specific allegations against Ms. Bennett." A board member, Dr. Reynolds, spoke up. "Actually, I think the allegations against Ms. Bennett have been thoroughly addressed by her documentation. What concerns me now is the pattern of behavior described by multiple community members. If the Harringtons have been pressuring teachers to change grades, that represents a serious ethical breach that this board cannot ignore." Richard Harrington stood again. "This is a coordinated attack on my family. We've done nothing but support this district generously for years. If this is how our contributions are repaid, perhaps we should reconsider our involvement entirely. Are you threatening to withhold donations unless we dismiss these allegations, Mr. Harrington?" Dr. Reynolds asked pointedly. The room went silent. Richard Harrington had walked directly into the trap, confirming exactly what I'd alleged. He stammered, I didn't mean, we simply expect fair treatment." "As does Ms. Bennett," Dr. Reynolds replied. "And every teacher and student in this district." The board chair called for a brief recess. As people milled about the auditorium, I remained seated, maintaining my composure despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Across the aisle, the Harringtons huddled with Superintendent Wilson, their gestures becoming increasingly agitated. When the meeting resumed, the board chair announced, "After reviewing the documentation provided and hearing testimony from multiple parties, the board finds no evidence of professional misconduct by Ms. Bennett. She will be immediately reinstated with no mark on her record." Relief washed over me, but the chair wasn't finished. "Additionally, the board will form a special committee to investigate the allegations of improper influence over grading and awards in our district. We take these claims seriously and are committed to maintaining the integrity of our educational system." The Harringtons sat stone-faced as the meeting concluded. As people began to file out, colleagues and parents stopped to offer me quiet congratulations and support. I packed up my materials, emotionally drained but vindicated. As I headed for the exit, I found Tyler Harrington waiting in the hallway, alone. "Ms. Bennett," he said hesitantly, "can I talk to you?" I nodded, keeping a professional distance. "I'm sorry," he said, staring at the floor. "I didn't want any of this to happen. I just told my parents I got a bad grade and they went crazy." Actions have consequences, Tyler, I said gently. For all of us. I know, he mumbled. I did the revision of that essay. The one you said I could redo. I've been working on it all week. He pulled a folder from his backpack and handed it to me. I opened it to find a neatly typed essay that appeared significantly more thoughtful than his original submission. I'll grade it fairly, I promised. Just like I would for any student. He nodded. That's all I'm asking for now. The aftermath unfolded gradually over the following weeks. The Harringtons' influence in the school district diminished significantly. The investigation revealed that at least 12 teachers had been pressured to inflate Tyler's grades over the years. Superintendent Wilson, whose close relationship with the Harringtons raised ethical concerns, announced his early retirement. Richard and Vanessa Harrington issued a carefully worded public apology, claiming they had only ever wanted the best for their son and had never intended to undermine educational standards. Few were convinced, but the statement allowed them to save some face as they stepped back from their various leadership positions in school organizations. As for Tyler, he returned to my class with a noticeably different attitude. He began turning in assignments on time and participating in discussions. His work wasn't stellar overnight, but it showed genuine effort. By the end of the semester, he had legitimately earned a B. On the last day of school before winter break, I found a small gift on my desk, a coffee mug that read, "Integrity Matters." There was no name, but I had my suspicions. I returned to my classroom in January with a renewed sense of purpose. The experience had been harrowing, but it had also been clarifying. I established firmer boundaries with parents and documented every interaction meticulously, a practice I continue to this day. The Harringtons still live in town, though they've transferred Tyler to a private school. I occasionally see Vanessa at the grocery store or Richard at community events. They no longer approach me with false warmth or veiled threats. Instead, they give me a wide berth, their recognition tinged with something that looks remarkably like respect. Sometimes, standing up for what's right costs you. It nearly cost me my career and reputation. But as I sip coffee from that Integrity Matters mug each morning before class, I'm reminded that the price of silence would have been far higher. In teaching, as in life, the most important lessons often come through the hardest experiences. I hope Tyler Harrington learned something valuable from our conflict. That true achievement can't be bought or bullied into existence. It must be earned, one honest effort at a time.